Morning, folks. So, after 2 years of agonising complaining and what have you from Jack Catterall, he's finally got his decision victory over Josh Taylor. Took a unanimous decision last night. I scored the fight 115-113 to Catterall. I think he just did enough. This fight was actually a better fight than the first fight. I wasn't actually looking forward to this fight at all, because I think it should have happened either immediately or at least last year sometime. And 2 years, it's over 2 years. It was February 2022, and so much time had passed. And obviously Taylor lost his WBO title to Teofimo Lopez since then. And Catterall, in my opinion, I know he beat Jorge Linares and sent him into retirement, but he's looked a bit underwhelming in my opinion, and he's done nothing but bitch and gripe, which he had his right to. I'm not saying he shouldn't have done, but he's been griping about the loss to Taylor. And that night I had Catterall winning quite handily. So by the time this fight rolled around, to be honest, all fight week I've not been interested. It should have happened before. But anyway, it was a thoroughly entertaining fight. The judges had it, I think two of them had it 117, 111, and the other one had it 116, 112. Like I say, I had it 115, 113 to Catterall. I think he just did enough. I had it quite close. Some people, I know Tony Bellew was on there yesterday complaining about the wide scorecards. Look, there were some rounds in there that could have gone either way, and so I don't know. It's not, it's wider than I had it. Like I say, I had it 115, 113. So it was a bit wider than I had it, but I don't think it's necessarily too wide. That's just me. That's just what I saw. I haven't rewatched the fight yet. I watched it live, and I scored as I watched it. I haven't got my score sheet in front of me. Catterall did the better work. He was using that jab of his. He was stabbing it out there. He was following up with flurries. He was landing some lovely left hands to the head. I felt Catterall should have gone to the body a bit more, because as we know, Taylor does struggle to make 140. At least he has done over the years. But I will say for Taylor though, he looked well on it tonight. Last night he looked really good at the weight. He seemed to make it quite well. Now he was targeting the body at times. He was landing that lovely southpaw left to the body at times of Catterall, but he didn't follow up with it. And I felt that if Taylor had maybe worked the body a bit more, Taylor was being quite aggressive at times. He was coming forward a lot, but I just felt his work was being kind of nullified by Catterall. I think Catterall was working beautifully behind that jab. And like I say, out of the first 6, I gave Catterall 5. I gave the third to Taylor. I just thought Taylor worked better in that round. Now after the 6th, the fight turned a little bit, because Taylor sort of came into it, and Catterall was noticeably tired, especially after the 6th. I mean, he put a lot into those rounds. The constant movement, the flicking, the pushing that jab out, and it wasn't just a soft jab. He was stabbing that jab, and lots of little flurries, 3 or 4 punch combos. That's what was doing it for me, anyway, from what I was watching. But Taylor sort of came into it in the middle rounds. Like I say, he was landing some quality stuff. Now we got to the 11th, and at the beginning of the 11th round, now this is one of those rounds that could have gone either way from what I saw, because the first couple of minutes, Taylor was he was working well, he was landing nicely, and then he walked into an absolute peach of a left hand from Catterall, and his fucking knees buckled. And then Catterall went in to try and finish him, and they sort of got a bit tangled up, and Taylor got bundled to the floor, and then he recovered, and he did well to recover. And by that point, obviously, Josh Taylor's right eye was all marked up and swollen. Obviously from the left hands. Obviously there were a few, I think there was 3 or 4 head clashes in the early part of the fight, which I don't like to see, but it happens. They were both coming in. I don't think they were intentional. I think Catterall was probably to blame for some of them. He was kind of jumping in with his head a little bit, but I don't think it was intentional. And luckily nobody got cut from that, because that would have been a fucking disaster. And so the 11th was one of those rounds. Do you score it to Taylor because he had the... Oh, excuse me, I do apologise. he had the better rounds for the better round for the first couple of minutes, and then Catterall landed the harder, more telling punches and had him hurt in the last minute. So I personally scored that one to Taylor, purely because I think he did the better work early on. But you can kind of see why anybody, a judge or anybody, would score that to Catterall, because obviously the more meaningful punches probably came from him, and he had Taylor in a lot of trouble. And by the end of it, it was quite amusing. I found it quite amusing because when the final bell rang, Taylor stuck his arm up, and I think Catterall actually looked at him and went, "Oh, fuck off," like that, basically saying, "You ain't won this, mate." And I thought, "Oh, hello, are we in for a bit of fucking shenanigans here?" But yeah, the right guy won. Like I say, I had it close, 115, 113. A couple of rounds here and there could have gone either way. But no, I think the right man won. People were like, "Oh, it's justice for 2.5 years ago." Yeah, maybe, but you shouldn't think of it like that. It's a different fight. It's a different fight, And it was a better fight than the first one. I found in the first fight, Catterall was doing well early on, and of course he scored a knockdown as well. But I felt a lot of the middle rounds were very scrappy, a lot of holding and not a lot happening, a lot of wrestling, a lot of ugly spoiling from both guys. I scored a lot of those rounds to Catterall in the first fight, purely because when there's not a lot happening, I tend to score on body language. And, Taylor looked uncomfortable and frustrated and annoyed throughout most of that fight, especially the middle rounds. And Catterall looked calm and comfortable, is the word I would use. So, yeah, if a fight's a bit of a spoily mess, huggy mess, I will score towards the guy who looks more comfortable and score against the guy who looks annoyed, frustrated and uncomfortable. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So obviously Catterall got his hand raised. It's a shame for him, because obviously 2.5 years ago, or however long, February 2022, if he'd have got the decision, he would have been undisputed light welterweight champion. But there were no belts on the line, because obviously Taylor had most of them taken off him, and then he lost his remaining one to Teofimo Lopez last year, as I said. So, it was a bit sweet for Catterall, because he got the victory, and that he's been clamouring for. He's had his hand raised over Taylor. He's been clamouring for this for over 2 years, and there's no belts to show for it. So a lot of people want to see a third fight. I don't particularly want to see a third fight. This was a good one, don't get me wrong, but I'd rather see Taylor move up. I think he'd be better suited to welterweight, just in my opinion. And I'd like to see Catterall perhaps try and challenge for a world title. I don't necessarily think Catterall will win a world title. I will go out there and say that. I don't know, it's just a feeling in my guts. I don't think he's quite world level, even though he's just beaten Josh Taylor, who was the undisputed welterweight champion a few years ago. So, but we'll have to see. But I did chuckle when poor old Bob Arum. Jesus, the guy's 92 years old. He's still quite spunky for a fucking 92-year-old man. And he got in there and he was ranting and raving. These scorecards were a disgrace. I will never let an American fighter, the British Boxing Board of Control will never score, blah, 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 judge a fight and all this. As if, American judges aren't just as fucking bad for getting things wrong. He was blaming the British judges for being shit. And yeah, they can be shit. I'm not defending them at all. But the American judges are just as fucking inept and stupid sometimes and make fucking ridiculous calls. So I did find that quite amusing. Eddie Hearn was in the background smiling, big fucking Cheshire cat grin on his fucking face. So, but yeah. The thing is, though, every time I noticed Bob Arum on screen during the fight, he looked like he was asleep. So I don't know, was he even paying attention to the fight? Is he just, because it's his guy, he just feels he has to scream and cry? I mean, he was screaming and crying last week. He reckons Tyson Fury got robbed, even though 99% of sane people know that Usyk deserved the victory. So it's either dementia's kicking in, or he's just going into overdrive because they're his guys. Who the fuck knows? But no, I did find it quite amusing. Poor old Bob. But anyway, that's enough out of me. What do you think of the fight? Do you want to see a fucking third fight? We'll see. Next week, we've got the big show from Saudi, the 5-on-5 Eddie Hearn for Matchroom versus Queensbury show, headlined by Deontay Wilder and Zili Zhang. Really looking forward to that one. It's just a shame that the undisputed light heavyweight title fight was pulled, because that was the big one we all wanted to see. But this card is still just as fucking good. Just as fucking good. I'm really looking forward to it. So I'll be talking about that next week. I hope you're all well. Take care, folks, and I'll speak to you soon.